In Mali, we had a long problem of terrorism. Until recently, under the leadership of Colonel Assimi Goïta, we realized that, these terrorists are formed by Emmanuel Macron and her Western allies and SIA. Then we decided to remove their international organizations out of Mali, their embassies out of Mali, their military out of Mali, to break the supply chain of weapons, food, and their other necessary resources to fight us, to destabilize Africa. When we did that, we militarized the army of Mali. We then went to Russia. We came with so many weapons. We went to confront the terrorists.
A lot is happening in Africa, and at times, if you sit back and wonder why it was so easy and possible for Africa to be enslaved and also colonized and neo-colonized till date, you'll be wondering why. You don't need to think further. Majority of them, for one reason or the other, are selfish, wicked, greedy. That is why France could take advantage of countries like Niger, Mali, and the rest of them before they decided to pull out. Now, Niger has pulled out of that oppressive, parasitic relationship with France. But the question that begs for an answer is this. Coup plotters, as some of you might want to call them, I want to call them freedom fighters, even though they are the military. Are you going to be people of integrity? That is what we want to know, because we've seen several of these played out even in Nigeria, where the military takes over, hijack government from the civilian government. All of their excuses for this is that the civilian government is corrupt. What we want is integrity, integrity, integrity. Now, coup happened, or revolution happened in Niger, because majority of Nigerians are in support of this, and many African countries. Their eyes are clear. Their eyes are open. They have seen the relationship of the West with African countries, and they say enough is enough. Russia is a new song now. China is a new song now in Africa. Well, I wouldn't blame them. I want you to stay put from the beginning of this video till the end, as you're going to listen to Professor Lumbumba explain why there is this sentimental connection between some African countries and Russia. And we are also going to see what Major General Chiani said and why they decided to take up arms, why they decided to press, why they decided to push out President Bazoum. I read. We often located terrorists, but when we asked to rush to kill them, President Bazoum told us to ask permission from the French forces first. But our soldiers were falling on the fronts, and France did nothing. We decided to do the same as Mali and Burkina Faso. Now, that's to let you know that the terrorism at the border of Nigeria that is uncontrollable, undefeated, is business. Macron is always visiting Nigeria, even though Nigeria is not a French colony. He's doing all of this to make sure that all these terrorists and imbalance, anarchy remains in Africa. Macron, France, is the last thread of wickedness in Africa. That is the truth. That's the reality. You will find majority of Nigerian army deserting, and once they talk, they are being court-martialed. Why? Because they have seen and realized that to take these terrorists down is as easy as possible. But there is this superpower somewhere. There are some group of people who are making money. Now, I'm not just going to blame the West or blame France alone or blame United States or any of this. You should blame your own wicked, greedy, evil leaders. Let us call them rulers who are making this possible. This is what Malians, Burkina Faso, Nigerians, and many other countries that are in support of each other now, this is what they found out. And this is why they said enough is enough. You cannot be looting our economy whilst keeping terrorism alive so that you can say you are giving us weapons. Once there is instability in a region, you can come in to steal, kill, and destroy. Let us listen to what this man has to say about the reason why Mali ended ties with the United Nations and their peacekeeping forces in Mali.
Long problem of terrorism. Until recently, under the leadership of Colonel Assimi Goïta, we realized that, these terrorists are formed by Emmanuel Macron and her Western allies and SIA. Then we decided to remove their international organizations out of Mali, their embassies out of Mali, their military out of Mali, to break the supply chain of weapons, food, and their other necessary resources to fight us, to destabilize Africa. When we did that, we militarized the army of Mali. We then went to Russia. We came with so many weapons. We went to confront the terrorists because now we know that the terrorist's mother is no longer in Mali. When we encountered the terrorists there, we taught them a lesson. You know what happened? The United Nations Human Rights Commission raised a red flag with an outcry that we in Mali are abusing human rights. You know the human rights for whom? For their children. Those terrorists that they formed and left there are the people that they're crying of, that we are abusing their human rights. But when they are terrorizing and destabilize Africa every day for the advantage of the West to get cheaper resources and cheaper labor in Africa, they don't complain. They don't say anything. You not hear. Imagine a journalist from Europe. We are looking for terrorists, but a journalist from Europe can come with a camera and go and do a documentary inside a danger zone where there are terrorists. Where did he got the numbers of the terrorists? How does he or she have an access with the terrorists? Their non-governmental organizations are comfortable in the terrorist zone. What are they doing there? They are looking points and points and points and tagging where there are mineral resources and extract, using those terrorists to fund them with those money, destabilizing the people of Africa. Double standards. Imagine those terrorists, if they don't come in Africa armed, they will come as journalists, as oppositional parties, as the advocates of human rights with their international organizations. If we arrest them on spying on us, you hear the outcry from their masters saying there is a human rights abuse in Africa. But they've kept Julian Assange for a long time after he has exposed them. And they even threatened to bomb ICC if ICC issues a warrant of arrest to any American citizen. Double standards.
This is an eye-opener for majority of people who do not understand the extent in which or at which these Western countries and of course criminal politicians have inflicted irreparable wounds in their country, in the continent of Africa. I want you to stay put till the end of this video. Let us hear from Professor Lumbumba. He's going to explain why Nigerians are screaming Putin, Putin, and why majority of these countries that are Francophone countries colonized by France, why they are chanting Russia, Putin, Russia, Putin. And he also wants to explain certain things. Do not be carried away. Do not jump from one to the other. Do not jump from one to the other. We should come to a point now where we can have a 50-50 dialogue, not a parasitic relationship, a symbiotic relationship where everyone is benefiting at equal terms and conditions. Let us hear him speak.
The reality of this war is that Russia is fighting the entire Western world. That is the reality. Many African countries quietly actually support Russia. And they support Russia out of historical reasons. that at critical moments during the struggle for independence, it is the Russians who came out to support those who are fighting for independence. The Russians who are present in Congo, the Russians who are present during the struggle in South Africa, the Russians who are present in Mozambique, the Russians who are present in Angola, the Russians who are present in Guinea-Bissau, and therefore sentimentally, Africans support Russia. But no matter who we support, my own view is that war has no eyes. The net effect is that those who are not responsible for the war end up suffering. And I hope that this war, once it's settled, will send a clear message also to the Western world that their hegemonic approach to world affairs must come to an end, and that the era of unilateralism and manipulation of multilateral institutions must stop, and the approach to world affairs must be collegiate through the UN. If they don't do that, then the Western world will find itself in a very difficult position, and the only thing that will protect them from the rest of the world is that they have nuclear weapons which they can unleash upon the rest of the world. And the writing is on the wall. If you look at the world today, and the dollar has been the dominant currency in the world. And the dollar's dominance came about in the 1960s, 1970s, perhaps a little earlier. But the dollar became the hegemonic currency when they entered into an arrangement with the Saudis, and we then gave the world, or they gave the world, the term petrodollar. So that what then started happening is that the dollar was no longer backed by any gold. The dollar became a fiat currency during the Nixonian era. Oh, I'm saying era and era at the same time. It was an era and an era at the same time. And almost all transactions in the world are terminated in the dollar. And they have used the dollar as an instrument of political and economic control, and that is coupled with the use of institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. And you remember, the World Bank and the IMF were created in Bretton Woods in New Hampshire in the United States in 1944 by American economists and British economists at that time, as a way of finding funds and deploying funds for the rebuilding of Europe after the World War II. But when African countries became independent, we also found ourselves in that space. So when you hear people saying we want to de-dollarize, they are actually saying we want total independence.
That is basically what it is. That is basically what it is. People want independence. But independence should come with integrity. Very important, very important. This is not a joke. We cannot play with this. We cannot just talk of total independence. We want to be in charge of our currency, of our resources. We want to be this. We want to sit down on the round table and discuss terms and conditions. These are very nice ideas. Niger is angry. Nigerians are angry. Burkina Faso, Mali, and the rest of those countries are hungry. They say, look, enough is enough. Cameroon is here to rise. Cameroon is comfortable because they are so weak. They also have their own internal crisis, the Ambazonia and the rest of them. Crisis in these francophone countries, all controlled by the selfish rulers that they have. And of course, France. Imagine a country like Cameroon where the president is dead but alive. He is there visiting France and shaking hands. Imagine that kind of life. A man whose cognitive ability is gone totally, but France will still, clap their hands and say, look, we don't want to get involved in their politics, but they're actually involved in their politics because supporting that old man keeps them and their fingers and everything in that country to steal resources. Like and share this video, subscribe to this channel. See you in the next update.